Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. I'm Mark Stein, Thrive founder and your podcast host. We're creating sustainable, inclusive, and multi-generational residential communities. Our mission is to combat the epidemic of isolation, revitalize communities, and help others discover the many benefits of engaged community living by offering unique and ecologically sustainable co-living options. In this podcast series, join us as we discuss co-living, in addition to bringing you interesting people from around the world who are doing cool things to expand your knowledge and satisfy your curiosity. Through this podcast, learn more about our concept and see how Thrive co-living communities will bring together people from all walks of life who want to enjoy the best of independent and group living. To find out more about us, please visit our website at thrivecolivingcommunities.org. Thanks for watching and enjoy the podcast. Okay, so hi, everybody, and welcome to the Thrive Co-Living Communities podcast. At this podcast, we often talk about sustainability, permaculture, and other key components of our mission here at Thrive. But we also like to interview people from our local community and beyond. So this is a way for us to highlight diverse, unique voices and show how co-living communities bring together interesting people from all walks of life. Today's guest is Amanda Hopwood from Odd Lots and Whatnots, a thrift and consignment store in Dunedin, Florida. And that's in Tampa Bay. When I first met Amanda at her store, I loved all the stories that she had selling odd items, buying from estate sales, and her experience working in the thrift and consignment industry. So I'm looking forward to hearing more stories from her. So welcome, Amanda.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for having us.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. How did you get into this business?
Well, actually, about 23 or 24 years ago, a girlfriend of mine needed to move her mother to an assisted living facility. She wasn't doing well. And at the time, I was selling solely on eBay. I had other jobs, but I was selling on eBay pretty much full time. And she had said, I need you to come and sell all of my mom's stuff. And I walked in and looked around and I'm like, dear, it'd take me 20 years to sell all of this on eBay. It's just too much stuff to do. Let's pick out the higher end items that would get more money on eBay, and the rest we'd have just an estate sale. Well, that birthed an addiction, amongst other things, as well as a business. We ended up liquidating a lot of her mom's china and crystal, which she had a huge collection, and eBay was a different animal 20 years ago than it is today. But we got rid of a bunch of her stuff and then did a huge estate sale and blew out more, and eventually got it knocked down to a dull roar and said, let's donate or whatever. We've done 3 estate sales. Let's move it along. And that birthed, neighbors, friends, whatever, were like, hey, we need to do the same thing. So that started a business for us, and we've done it now for about 24 years. And I love estate sailing shopping, but I don't usually shop for for other people. I shop more for myself. Although I do flip a lot of things. If I see something at an estate sale that I know is worth 4 times more than they're asking, I'm absolutely going to buy it because I'll turn around and flip it on eBay or wherever. Everybody likes to make a buck here and there. So I do really well there. But the store itself kind of got birthed during COVID. A realtor that I've known for many years contacted me and said, hey, I'm desperate. I got a multi-million-dollar deal on the table. We can't go to closing because the house is packed with stuff. I know you randomly buy estates. Would you consider buying this one? And so I went down and had a look, and it was a lot of really, really, really nice stuff. And I said, I'm not sure that I can afford to pay them what this stuff is worth. And at the time, we had been locked down for maybe about 3 or 4 months, and there was no kind of time frame as to when we might open back up. So I didn't know how long I'd have to store this stuff. Excuse me. So I said, here's the best I can do. I'm really sorry. I know it's a low ball offer, but I, of course, have to pay people to pack it, to move it, to store it. And I don't know how long it's going to sit there, kind of thing. So they took the offer to the owners, and the owners were like, oh, we'd be thrilled with that because we don't care about that. We care about the real estate money. So that kind of birthed the first, and word spread like wildfire in the real estate office that, hey, this sucker will buy your stuff. So,
And the whole thing.
United States, oh yeah, we buy everything lock, stock, and barrel.
Is that part of the
States,
condition? Is that one of the conditions that you have to take everything?
Yeah, if you're doing a buyout, you take it to the bare walls and flooring. When we normally go in, we host the estate sales. And normally when we go in, we'll do the estate sale. And they have two choices at the end. We can either pack it, move it, donate it, whatever, or they can do it themselves. If we do it, we basically leave the home or apartment, whatever it is, broom swept, vacuumed, and wiped. And it's ready at that point for either somebody else to move in or a realtor to show it. So we're used to doing that as part of our gig. And of course, the new owners don't want all this stuff being left. So we're used to just taking it down to just the walls and floors. But it was a lot of work. Keep in mind, when the COVID first started, there were no charities open. You couldn't donate anything. None of the drop boxes were open. You either threw it away, you packed it, moved it, and stored it yourself, or you found somebody like me that would be willing to buy it and do that for you. So, like I said, word spread like wildfire in the real estate community. Hey, this lady will buy them. So 9 estates later, I kind of went, I'm done. I can't afford to keep paying all of this storage for an indefinite period of time and to continue to acquire storage units. And we were selling some things on like Facebook Marketplace, and I was taking boxes and boxes home and selling them on eBay. But again, it's labor intensive, it's time consuming, and there wasn't a quick enough turnover. So we still had a ton of stuff once things started to open back up. So I decided I'd try my hand at having my own store, and I decided to make it an estate liquidation center, as well as do consignments, because I wanted a way to sustain the store after I had depleted all of my storage units. Well, it was a great plan, but what I didn't factor into was folks in communities that can't have estate sales, mobile homes, or secured buildings, etc. Again, word spread like wildfire. Hey, this lady will do a buyout for you. And there are other estate sale companies that will do buyouts, but a lot of them, it's like, here, we'll give you $200 and that's it. We're a little more realistic in our offers. I have to factor in how long it's going to take me to pack all of this stuff, to move it, if I have to store any of it, etc. So we factor that in, and I give in my opinion, a fair offer. Did I really score on a couple of the ones that we did during the COVID lockdown? Absolutely. There was just no way to pay what the stuff was worth because we didn't know how long we'd have to store it. So, I didn't want to offer them $65,000 for their stuff, and I'm going to sit on it for 2 years and pay storage on it. So we did what we needed to do. We got it done, and they were happy. Again, they weren't interested in the estate sale stuff. They were like, we just want it gone. We want the real estate money, because several of them were really nice waterfront homes in Bel Air, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So they had some really high-end stuff. So I think we did well with them, and they seemed to be really happy with it too. So hence the store was born.
And so the store is just since COVID?
Yes. Yeah, the store has actually been here about 1.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you keep a huge number of storage units? How much inventory do you keep and keep stored?
I'm trying to dwindle them very rapidly because it's very expensive to have all these storage units. I'm down to 5 10 by 30 storage units. We peaked at one point at 11 of them. We have dwindled them down, and I'm trying to close at least one more before the end of this year. So I'm really passionate.
And they are expensive here in this area because so many people want to store snowbirds that need to store things and that sort of thing. So they are expensive. in the
And
area?
they're popping up everywhere. I don't know if you've driven up and down US 19, but we have probably 6 or 7 new storage facilities between Clearwater and Tarpon Springs just on US 19.
Hmm.
And they're not cheap. They really are not cheap to maintain. So
Do you pick a storage facility near where the estate sale is so that you got minimal moving?
sometimes we do. I try and keep them closer to my home. So most of mine are within a certain radius of my home. But sometimes, you have foul weather coming or whatever, and you just have to move it. Now, when I do a buyout, I will integrate estates because at this point I own them. I own everything that's in them, lock, stock, and barrel. And if I have space in one of my units, I will absolutely pack as much as I can into that unit to save space and to try and not open yet again another unit. But
Hmm.
sometimes these homes have, gargantuan furniture that we're just not able. We try and sell the furniture in place, meaning while we're there packing up all of the little tchotchkes and bric-a-brac, we try and sell the furniture on Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever. Because of course, I don't want my guys getting hurt moving furniture or anything like that. So we really try and sell the big stuff as much as we can. And some of it, it's just like, okay, we absolutely have to store it. We don't have a choice, but I'm not dragging it, 30 miles up if I don't have to. So
Right.
I would keep them closer to where they started life, especially
How,
with coastal stuff.
hmm
We keep that stuff closer to the beach because that's our bigger audience there.
right. How do you keep track of things? Do you inventory everything?
No, no. For an estate sale, we will keep a loose inventory. Bigger ticket items, specialty items, things like that. But as far as things that I have purchased, i.e., I bought your estate, all of that stuff is mine. I don't keep an inventory. For whatever reason, my brain will track that. I can tell you that I have a 1920s typewriter in my storage unit on Sunset Point Road, but ask me if I paid the power bill, and I'm like, hang on, I got to look at my phone. I got to see if it cleared my bank account because I don't keep track of those things. But, this crystal bird, oh, I can tell you exactly where I got it and when, and if there's a story, I can give you that too on it. For just my brain doesn't track the important things, it just tracks the silly things.
Well, I think we track what's important to us. So,
Yeah,
um,
to a certain degree, I agree with that. Yeah.
um, so you could tell me if I knew of an item, you could tell me which storage unit it's in.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Um, let's see. I want to stay with the mechanics of this for a little bit more. So, do you take individuals to your storage units? I mean, it sounds like they're packed so high that there's not a way to get in. How, if you've got somebody that's interested, I guess if you're doing it on eBay or uh, where it is, how do you take people to your storage unit?
We will for the furniture. I have photographs of all of the furniture that we have. And if somebody says, hey, I'm looking for a dresser, I say, here, these are our 7 dressers that we have. And I know exactly which unit they're in. And the way I have the units packed, there is a little bit of unpacking to do, but they're usually very accessible to us. And we have people meet us there at the unit and we pull the stuff out, let them see it. Sometimes they buy it. Sometimes they're like, nah, it's not exactly what I wanted. And at that point, you have to pack it all back, which is not fun. But, we're trying to push the furniture as quickly as we can because, of course, that takes up a lot of room.
Mhm.
And if we can unload the furniture sooner rather than later, I can close yet another unit. But what I don't do anymore, which when I first started with buying all of these bulk estates, was I was trying to put all of the furniture in one unit. So we would move stuff in and then I'd have to be rearranging. And it just got to be too much of a nightmare. And I said, no, it just stays with the estate that it's in. and we just set it along the walls at the very end of the unit. All of my units, except for two, have doors on either end. So we put all of the furnishings on one end and all of the other stuff tucked in on the other side.
You know, I was not living during the Depression, but my mindset about waste and about throwing things away is like a Depression era person. Maybe,
Right.
and I didn't even have grandparents that lived through the Depression that talked about it ad nauseum. But I've got this thing about waste. Um, and I'm wondering how you feel about throwing things away that still have valuable lifetimes.
Right. Um, the the landfill doesn't need it. And I tell people this all day long. They're like, "Oh, I'm just going to throw that away." And I'm like, "Why? The landfill doesn't need it. Donate it, upcycle it, do something with it. If you don't want it in your world, give it to somebody else that can use it, that does want it." There's a great thrift store called the Restore. It's a Habitat for Humanity restore. Anything that's salvageable that doesn't sell in an estate, we take that to them that they can use. Any building materials, boxes of nuts, bolts, screws. You know, everybody's like, "Oh, just throw it away or call a scrapper." And I'm like, or just donate it to the Restore and they can resell it or use it to build a home for Habitat. We have tile and laminate flooring. And I always tell people the flooring that's in my house, my parents put it in 1984. It's ceramic Italian tile. It's great big, huge 16-inch tiles. I've never been able to find those exact tiles to replace ones that have damaged over the years. But I happened to be in one over in Tampa, and there was a tile that was really, really, really similar. Well, guess who snatched up those? If somebody had thrown them away, I'd have never gotten them. But they were close enough that I was able to put them in my home and use them over the damaged tiles or to replace the damaged tiles. So everything has a purpose. It's just finding the right person for that purpose. And kids today, they don't collect necessarily decorative things, dolls, whatever. They're more about experiences and cell phones, tattoos, piercings, things like that. That's more their speed, but they're very earth conscious. And so when they get into things like lawn art, they want to take, two battered pots, paint them and make, put a ball on it. Now you have a Christmas ornament for your front yard. They're all about the reuse and recycling. And that's huge. The world's not getting any bigger. We don't have any new land being developed or being made, so to speak. It's like waterfront property. What's there is there. So
Right.
it's nice that they're not putting stuff in the landfill and not putting it in these burn piles to where it's damaging the earth. And I'm a big proponent of that. We recycle and try and salvage everything. One of the things that we do is broken dishes. We make them into bags or boxes for people who do mosaics. You can come and buy a box of busted up pots, or plates, china cups, whatever, and use them for your crafting projects. We do the same thing with jewelry. We call them crafter bags or crafter boxes. And it's a way to keep it out of the landfill. And that's huge for us.
I don't know if you've seen some of these stores. I believe we have one in Tampa Bay, over in Tampa, I think, where they get Amazon returns and sell it all in bulk.
Right.
And Amazon, I saw a program on the stats. They restock very little of what comes back to them. It mostly goes to these stores
Right.
because the boxes are open. Sometimes pieces are missing. But think about that waste stream that we have, and then put in there these sales or the estates that go unclaimed. It's just a lot. And our co-living community is all about sustainability
Right.
and reuse, recycle. So we really, really support this effort that you're doing.
Well,
Um,
there's just no reason. Why throw it away? If you don't want it anymore, gift it, give it away. There are so many needy people. Dunedin has a huge homeless population. You don't really notice them just driving through town. But as a business owner here now, I immediately started to notice them. We work with a group called Helping Hands Corporation. They're in Palm Harbor. They provide meals daily to the homeless population. Well, any bicycles or sleeping bags or pillows that are new or not, nasty or whatever, we donate straight to them because it goes straight into the homeless community.
mhm.
We donate clothing that doesn't meet store standards or, you know, black t-shirts. We have 300 black t-shirts. We don't need 300. Donate them to these folks. Let the people in the community that truly need them use them. And that's a huge deal for me. I'm not a handout, but a hand up person. I like helping people, but I don't want to embarrass anybody or anything like that. So I always say, um, if you need this, you're welcome to it at this price, to where, I give it to them for $1 or for 50 cents. If they need it, they need it. And that way they think, well, she's not giving it to me. I'm not a charity case, because some people are still very prideful.
Sure.
But word has spread in the homeless community that, if they come to me, I'll have them, scrub the windows in front of the store, wipe them all down or whatever. And here's $10. Go get yourself something to eat or whatever. Um, I've gotten burned a few times doing that, but they know, the ones that are, truly trying to better themselves, know that they can come and I'll do what I can for them. And some days I can and some days I can't. But I think it's important to be a part of the community that you're in and be
Mhm.
a good partner in that community.
Before we dig deeper into your business, there are a lot of new ways that you can get rid of items. Facebook, talk about some of these newer ways. Um, if if people have things that they want to give away, there's free cycle. Talk about the whole range of options for people that don't want to throw things away and want to get it to where it needs to be.
Yeah, there are a lot of different apps. Freebie Finder is one of them. There's probably 10 or 12 different ones, and each one has some kind of a foothold in the community. There are, of course, people that will take advantage of it, and that's all they do all day is troll on there looking for free things that they can flip and sell. Hey, better you than me. If you've got the time and energy, you do that. I don't. Um, and so we donate a lot of things like that to those types of places, things that aren't moving here in the store that I need the space, get them gone. But a lot of the larger item things, furnishings, etc., they come in, they'll sit in the store. Anything after 60 days, I'm like, get it up on Marketplace. Let's get it out of here. If it doesn't sell on Marketplace, then we put it as free. You got to pick it up by 4 o'clock. The landlord doesn't let us put things by the dumpster anymore. Um, One of the neighbors complained, so everything has to go into the dumpster. But usually I'll give them 2 or 3 days, and it's usually claimed within the first day. But there are a half dozen sites that you can list. It is time consuming, and I have to pay my employees to photograph it, to type where it is, what time it'll be there till, but it gets it gone and somebody else will reuse it. We get a lot of furniture flippers, gals that chalk paint furnishings and things like that, giving them a new life. And so as we go through and say, we need floor space, let's get rid of this piece, let's get rid of that piece, we immediately put an ad on Facebook on our page, furniture flippers and chalk painters. These are the pieces, they're free or they're $5 or whatever. You got to pick them up by the end of the week. And we do a pretty brisk giveaway business on the furniture that's almost always claimed within the first 2 hours.
You said flippers and who?
Chalk painters. They're
Okay.
girls that they chalk. It's a type of paint,
Hmm.
but they chalk paint this furniture and give it a distressed look and whatnot.
Right.
It can take an old piece and make it look absolutely spectacular. So
Yeah, I know
we have a
someone
lot
who
of those
does that.
things. Okay.
So let's talk about collectibles. And you mentioned that people are not collecting, don't seem to be collecting as much as you and I are in the neighborhood of the same age as when we were growing up. Talk about some of the things from estate sales that people have collected that are interesting to you.
Well, there's a lot of cool stuff at any estate, but the young kids today aren't materialistic yet. From what I've been able to ascertain just doing my research, surveying people that come through the store, somewhere around 35, 40, they start showing an interest in acquiring collections. Now, interestingly, with COVID, before COVID, you couldn't sell a dinner set for any kind of reasonable money. They just weren't selling. Um, since COVID, tablecloth sales escalated over 800%. And that came directly from the manufacturers in the retail industry. Shows like Bridgerton, Downton Abbey, things like that have attributed to that. One of the more popular selling items in our store are odd teacups and saucers, because now everybody is having formal teas and whatnot. And they like a mix. They don't necessarily like the whole set to all be the same. We still sell those, but they like, just one cup and saucer here of this pattern, one of that pattern. Um, the younger kids, they're more interested in experiences and traveling, things like that. But what they really, really like are things from their childhood. So we
Toys,
a lot
games.
of the toys, the video games, we have an email sign up sheet where they can give us what they're looking for. And when we get them in, we'll send an email saying, hey, we have this, this, and this. I would say we probably have more people on the vintage game and video game list than we do on any of our other what we're looking for lists. It's the nostalgia thing. They just love the nostalgia of it. So, as far as unusual things, of course, I'm the queen of odd. Anything that's unusual, I have it. And yeah, we just, what excites one person doesn't excite another. We have a lot of folks that collect Crocs, the old antique, just huge mixing Crocs or whatever. But a lot of people walk by and they go, oh, that's just junk. So each person has something that interests and appeals to them. And I think we have a pretty good collection of that type of thing. But each person is different. Me personally, I'm like, ooh, sparkly. I'm easily distracted. So I see something shiny and I'm heading that direction. But I'm also the person, if I'm shopping, even in other thrift stores or, an estate, and I'm friends with several of the other estate sale ladies, they'll sometimes call and say, hey, you may want to check this one out. There's some stuff that we think you'd be interested in. I'm the person bent over rooting through a box, because that's where you find your true hidden treasures, is the actual picking through the boxes. We did an estate many, many years ago. It was a hoarding situation, but this person had a lot of books, and some of them were antiquarian books, but just a lot of books. And we always, look in the books to see if there's any personal information or whatever. We stamp it out, or bookmarks or whatever. We pull those kind of things out. And this gentleman was hiding $100 bills in his books. And so every single book that we came across had to be fan folded in each direction, and, shaken so that the money would fall out. We collected over $8,000 in $150 bills that we returned to the heirs. And they're like, he had it where? And I'm like, in the books. We do a lot of hoarder situations. And hoarders, as a general rule, are pretty much creatures of habit. And if you start to notice, if you know what you're doing, you'll notice a pattern that they kind of stick with. We did one, and this lady used to do a lot of traveling. So every single wallet and every single purse had a 10, a 5, and 5 ones. That was her tip money. So once we discovered that she was doing this, all of the handbags had to be sorted through and looked through to see if they had money in them. And I would say 90% of them did have money in them. Every now and then we kind of trip up with them. One that we did a couple years ago, the lady was hiding money in the Ziploc bag box in her pantry. And the only reason we found the money was we were putting a bunch of loose things in Ziploc bags, and we snatched a bag out, and out drops $400. And I'm like, oh, you just can't make this up. There's no rhyme or reason. So at that point, we're looking down every single tube of foil and saran wrap, because if they're going to hide it in the Ziploc bag, why wouldn't they at that point also put it in the saran wrap or the foil tube? So we spent probably an hour going through everything in her pantry to see where else she was hiding money. Turns out she didn't hide it anywhere else in there. So, but you learn your people quickly.
What do you understand about hoarding? What and I'm sure there are psychologists that have studied the phenomenon. What is it that you have learned about this phenomenon of hoarding, because you're seeing the results of it when you go in?
Something seems to break in them. One that we did years ago, kind of the trigger for him was his children were leaving home. The last one had gone off to college. He was now an empty nester, and something broke in him. And he went out and started acquiring toys. And by toys, he was not only going to the toy stores and buying every single action figure known to man, he was also buying like McDonald's toys and just anything and everything child related, not necessarily baby furniture or things like that, but toys that maybe like 6 to 16 would utilize. He had a 3,500 square foot home that was his storage unit. He had another home in Florida as well where he lived. But this house had, I kid you not, 150,000, no exaggeration, toys just on the wall. So in his guest bathroom, we took down 46 shelves, and each shelf would have some kind of a little figure, either a ceramic or like a McDonald's toy, you know, a 3-inch toy. And then tucked around it would be things like thimbles or little miniature pewter pieces, or I don't know if you're familiar with what a Wade figurine is, but they're just little tiny figurines. The entire square inch, every square inch of this shelf would be packed, and they were just on every single wall, floor to ceiling. And it was incredible because in addition to that, the house was a complete hoard. Literally, you could go about 4 steps in, and then you had to turn sideways and kind of scoot along and then turn again just to get into the kitchen. It took us 4 days of working in there, 10-hour days, to discover that there was, in fact, a couch in the living room. We had no idea. There was just so much stuff piled up in there. And originally, we think he started being organized because there were a lot of boxes with these, toys, X-Men, Marvel, DC, whoever, all brand new in box. But then towards the end, his health was failing, but he couldn't keep up with it. So he would go shopping and he would literally bring a bag in, just tie the ends and send it lobbing into the room. And each bag, he was a diabetic, each bag, this was one of his hoarding tells, had some kind of a cracker, usually an insulin syringe, and books and or McDonald's toys or both. And occasionally, like action figures or whatever that were out of the packaging. But his entire house was like this. And we spent close to a year doing nothing but once a month we would do a 3-day estate sale up there, and then come back and rearrange and reposition and restock, so to speak. When we first started doing the sales up there, several of the rooms had to be completely cleaned off. There just physically wasn't floor space enough to display anything and to get it all out. And in the end, we actually ended up having to call an auctioneer and have him get rid of the rest of it. There was just too much stuff, and we were exhausted at that point. It was like, make it go away. But I think something in them breaks, and I don't know what triggers that. I've read several books on it, and somebody in one of the books suggested that it was the fear of loss, or it was they had suffered some kind of a loss, and so they keep dragging things to them. You were talking about Depression era babies. My girlfriend's mother was a Depression era baby, and when we were doing her home, I would go into like the kitchen and I would open a cabinet, and there would be, you know, the styrofoam that meat comes in at the grocery store, the styrofoam containers. There would be these styrofoam containers that she had rinsed off and put into the cabinets. And so I would drag them out and put them in the recycling bin. And as quickly as I'm doing this, she's dragging them back inside. And so I told my girlfriend, I'm like, honey, you got to get your mom out of here. As quickly as I'm putting this stuff in either the garbage or the recycling bin, she's hauling it back in. And so she would distract her mom in another section of the house. But there were, you know, newspapers for days in there, which worked to our favor. We were able to wrap things in there. She didn't keep them because they were collectible. She just kept them because why not? And this was a huge house. This is probably a 4,200 square foot home. And it was packed literally floor to ceiling with anything and everything. But she just couldn't let it go because at some point she may need it.
Right.
And I think that's kind of their thing. One that we're working on right now up in Palm Harbor. Again, it's a hoarding situation. And this lady just, she liked to shop. She had her things that she really liked. She liked her Christmas stuff. But she also liked birds and nature and flowers. And I mean, there's bags upon bags of brand new with tags items that we're working on. She didn't know that she already had 6 of them, or maybe she did know and she just forgot or whatever. But as we're going through, we're finding duplicates and triplicates and quadruplets of the exact same thing. She just lost track of them, or they appealed to her sufficiently that she said, you know, I got to have these. And she just kept buying and buying. The lady that we did with the gentleman that had the toys, she had made the comment to me, we could have been multimillionaires if he had just invested that money instead of buying these toys constantly. And she said, but I was just never able to get through to him to let him know that he couldn't do this. And she put her foot down at their other house. He had 2 rooms and all the rest were hers, and none of his stuff was allowed to encroach in her rooms. But the minute you opened the door in the other 2 rooms, it was the same thing, just literally floor to ceiling boxes. And my thinking has always been, if it doesn't hurt anybody, let them do it. But my thinking was also, if it makes them happy, let them do it, as long as they're not causing harm. One of my heirs recently pointed out to me, obviously they're not happy. They don't even take the things out and use them or enjoy them or say, ooh, isn't that pretty? One of the things that a lot of the old ladies collect are HSN and QVC jewelry. As they become less capable of getting out, they turn to HSN, QVC, etc. And they buy jewelry or handbags or clothing or whatever. And so we get a lot of that kind of jewelry. But as this heir had said, she has 20 bags of jewelry that she's never even torn the seal on. How could that possibly make her happy? And I thought about it and I'm like, well, that's totally depressing. Thanks. But yeah, you're right. You know, she may have gotten the thrill of the retail therapy while she was placing the order, but she never even took it out of the package to look at it and go, oh, it's really pretty and sparkly. None of that. So that kind of was a bit of a downer for me. I was like, that's not fun. Don't tell me that. But something does break in them. What it is, I'm not a psychologist, but there is some trigger in this world that makes them start to hoard. And again, I think it's that I'm losing something, so I'm going to keep everything.
There has to be an OCD component, obsessive compulsive component in all that.
There definitely is.
Let's go back to just regular collectibles. And you mentioned the younger people are not collecting this stuff, but every family, as my parents were aging, every family had the family silverware, the family china, all this expensive china, real china. Is that still in these estate sales?
Oh, yes.
And what do you do with that? There's sets, and some families have multiple sets of them, don't they?
Yes. Yeah, a lot of them will have multiples. Unfortunately, a lot of them are silver plate, like for the flatware, and the sets are not complete. Most of that kind of stuff, we just look at it, look at the pattern, of course, look to see if it's sterling. And then we'll just slap a price on it and send it and hope that we sell it. If not, a lot of it will get eBayed, because some of those patterns, folks have, a set that they inherited from their grandmother or whatever, and it's sentimental. And so they'll add to their sets. As far as the China's a struggle, but we have an advantage, i.e. eBay. We take a lot of China consignments that are eBayed, only because, Uncle Bob came over for Thanksgiving dinner and broke 2 dinner plates or whatever. So I only need 2 more dinner plates in this pattern. So we have a pretty sizable collection of plates and dish sets that we break apart and then sell, onesie, twosie here, onesie, twosie there. And sometimes you're left in the end with, an odd number of cups and saucers or whatever. We'll throw them in the store, mark them down to next to nothing, and send them, and let somebody else waste their time with them or whatever, if they so desire. But yeah, each house has the same kinds of things, and not all of them. Some of the heirs are just like, no, we absolutely don't want anything. And I always say, I'll set aside and send you pictures of things that I think you might be interested in. With one of them, we found under a dresser some military discharge paperwork and Purple Heart stuff. And I took a picture, and the daughter was like, oh, we didn't even know that he still had any of this stuff. Nobody had ever seen it in so long. And I'm like, well, it's under the dresser, so of course. But she did want things like that back. But most of the time, heirs will go through, take what they want, and then whatever they don't want, it's like, just make it go away. They don't want it in their world. They just want it to go away. They don't care how it goes away, just make it go away. And we're really good at helping them with making it go away.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're getting close on our time, but and actually, let me go ahead and record this. An intro to us going and looking at some things in your shop. So let me make a note to Libby. So let's go take a look at some of the things in your shop and take a break from this format for a little bit and just look at some of the unusual items in your shop.
We would love that. And we do have a lot of unusual items, and of course, more coming in all the time. Probably the most unique thing, and it's a sale that we're working with the courts on right now. I don't think I'm going to sell them, but this lady had a ton of religious stuff and voodoo dolls. She was such a juxtaposition. I haven't met this lady yet. I'm only working so far currently with the attorney. But this is just the weirdest estate that I've dealt with. There's all this religious stuff. And by all this, I mean, we're talking probably 2,000 pieces of religious books, pens, bookmarks, plates, everything. And then there's a whole box full of nothing but voodoo stuff. Like, okay. So yeah, let me know. We'll take a quick walk around and I can show you some of the cool things that we have because we have them in spades right now.
Good. Okay, so Libby, just include that entire conversation, and then let me just say this: I'm sort of setting a scene, Amanda, for us to look around. So
Okay.
let's go look at that and go look at some other stuff. So
Sounds great.
there. Okay, so now let's get back to this. And you headed in that direction. You talked about collectibles and hoardings types of things. Talk about some of the most unusual single items, like the voodoo dolls. What are some of the most unusual one-off items that you've seen in these estate sales?
Well, certainly the voodoo dolls got my undivided attention because I was like, well, that's a first. And these are attached with the curse and everything on them. This lady truly believed in what she was doing. And it was funny because in the unit where we got them, when I found the first one, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then we found two more, and I'm like, this is true voodoo. Voodoo is done in three. So I was like, oh boy.
Did they have names of people on them?
Yes. Yeah. It was curses against three individuals. There's a backstory there, and it's purely speculation on my part, but she definitely did not care for these folks in law enforcement. There were three of them, and she definitely was putting her bad juju on them. So, but no, we have found all kinds of unusual things, everything from, grandpa's teeth, gold teeth, which kind of always freaks me out when I come across gold teeth because I'm like, oh God, that's been in somebody's mouth. I don't want to touch it. And I'm not a squeamish person. But we do get a lot of gold teeth and things. And I'm sure there's a half dozen things that are just completely off the wall. My brain is just completely blank. I have somebody standing here looking at me going like, why are you not talking to me? Sorry.
Why are you talking to yourself in your car?
Well, no, they can see I'm on the phone, but it's my 4 o'clock appointment. They'll be fine for just a minute. But you do find unusual things, and even some of the airs. One of the things that tickles us, we play Where's the Porn whenever we're doing an estate sale, because every single home has some kind of pornographic something in it. Even the most religious ladies. We had one that we did, and this lady was completely religious, the whole 9 yards, and look, tucked away in the back of a drawer, and in fairness, it may not have been hers. This lady was wheelchair bound most of her life. It could have belonged to her parents. But yeah, there's porn, and the ladies and I, to kind of keep it interesting, whoever finds the porn gets a $10 bonus that day. It makes them look just that much harder. I've spent years honing my team of ladies that do the estate sales with me, only because you have to be absolutely hyper vigilant. Don't open a drawer and go, oh, it's just lingerie and socks. No, you have to take everything out of the drawer, because when we're doing a sale, you have to remove everything, including prescription medications, narcotics. If they were a diabetic, some of them have little tiny lancets in their drawers. Everything has to come out, sort, and this helps keep them focused on doing that, as opposed to just opening the drawer going, yeah, it's just socks and lingerie, junk. one of the most interesting things that we found was a 4-carat diamond ring in a sock in a prescription bottle, tucked away in the back of the sock drawer. If I hadn't heard it rattle the pill bottle, I would have probably just assumed it was socks and not felt all the way down them to go, oh, look, there's something in there. But there was a 4-carat diamond ring in there. So,
Wow.
yeah. One of the things that I tell heirs is throw nothing away, assuming open every single thing up and look at it, including the coffee ground can, because a lot of these old folks will hide things in the coffee grounds too.
Right.
And again, I think a lot of it goes back to Depression era mentality. I may need it at some point, or it's the safest place for me to hide it. And so they hide things.
Freezer's got to be a big place.
Yes, definitely have found all kinds of interesting things in the freezers. We always pull out the ice trays and defrost all of it. It's an automatic ice maker. We defrost it fully. We found a tennis bracelet in one of the automatic ice tray dispensers. It had literally been frozen into the ice on the bottom. And I was like, wouldn't have known that. And whoever bought the house or whatever may have discovered it at some point. But no, we have to check everything. We also check the AC ducts, the returns, and any attic crawl spaces. We go up with a super bright flashlight and just shine it, because you just never know. Now, funny story, quick side note, one of the homes that we had done, we pulled down the attic stairs and shimmied up there and turned the light. The gentleman had a mannequin in there. Scared the bejesus out of the guy that was up on the ladder. He came flying out of there and he's like, oh my God, there's a dead body in the attic. Needless to say, it wasn't a dead body. It was just a mannequin. But yeah, people hide things in the weirdest of places. And it's kind of our job to find them, because some of them are stupid valuable and some of them are total junk. You just never know what you're going to find. So we have a good time doing it, and we do find the unusual. And when we do the walkthrough, I'll show you some of the unusuals or tell you more about the unusuals that we've got going on. So
great. Well, let's give the name and address of your shop. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we are Odd Lots and Whatnots, and we are located at 1108 Overcash Drive in Dunedin, Florida. We are at the intersection of 580 and Overcash, and we have the hot pink and black signs. You can't miss them. They're pretty eye-catching.
And give your phone number.
We are at 727-692-5973, and we are here Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 4. You can also find us on Facebook. If you do Odd Lots and Whatnots, you will find us. I had started doing a Facebook Live show last year, and basically it would be, I'll hold up an item and I'll say it's a wooden snowman pin. It's item 22. It's 2 inches long. It's item 22 and it's $5. If you want it, you would type want 22. We ship everything worldwide. I will be resuming that format in addition to the store, probably mid-January. I took a tumble in front of the store just ahead of 4th of July and knocked out all the teeth on one side of my head. And was supposed to be having the surgery done this Thursday, but I just got a call yesterday from the dentist's office saying that he won't be in this week, so I have to bump that now until the first week in January. But as soon as I get my new teeth in, we will be back to doing Facebook Live again. Your listeners in other areas, if they like and follow us on Facebook, every time I go live, they'll get a notification that we're live. And like I said, anything that they are interested in buying, we will ship it worldwide.
And you said you have a watt list.
Yes.
So is there an email address? How do they get on that watt list?
They can call the store or they can shoot us an email. We are oddlotswhatnots@gmail.com, and just tell us what it is that they're looking for. Chances are I either have it in storage or it's in the store. Pretty much anything that you can imagine being in someone's home we either have or have had or will have again in the future. And we get people on eBay that say, you know, I've heard of you. This is what I'm looking for. Do you have this? I didn't see it on your eBay stuff, because we don't have everything that we sell on eBay. It'd take us years to get that done. And we have actually been able to fill in some pieces for folks that said, you know, I don't see it on eBay, but taking the chance you might have it. And turns out we did. And so we were able to sell it to them and make them happy as well.
And what's that email address again? It's
oddlotswhatnots@gmail.com.
Okay.
There's no and or ampersand in the email.
Got it. Well, Amanda, I knew this was going to be a fascinating interview, and you've proven me right. I really appreciate you taking the time, and and thanks for showing me around. So we'll put your contact information down in the show notes. So, thanks for joining us on the Thrive Co-Living Communities podcast, Amanda. To learn more about Amanda and her business, check out her information down in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out the rest of our channel for more great interviews. Thanks for joining us for another great episode of the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. To learn more about our mission and how you can support our vision of creating co-living communities worldwide, please visit us at thrivecolivingcommunities.org. To receive advanced viewings of our podcast and other exclusive content, find us on Patreon at patreon.com/Thrive Co-Living Communities. You can also learn more ways to support our mission in the show notes below. Amazon Smile, GoFundMe, Kroger, and our own Thrive Gear store, where you can buy t-shirts, hats, and many other items. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.